Previously on the Seventh Valkyrie, BC departs for the winter festival, leaving May and Cyrus to enjoy a lovely evening together. But with tensions in the old city and new city about to burst, will Cyrus and May have a role to play in the conflict? Find out next on the Seventh Valkyrie. Chapter 23. The Emerald Shine. The 17th day of winter. Evening. Cyrus. I had been very unlucky in my time in Edera, but there were also times when I felt very, very lucky. And sitting with May on her balcony, both of us finely dressed and nestled between two torches under the stars, enjoying a delicious meal, well, that was one of the times where I felt really, really lucky. Based on the stories Tristan and Erytheme had told me, great wolves lived an incredibly long time. And there certainly were moments where May spoke, and I could sense a timeless wisdom in her, something tied to forces much larger than any of us in this tiny little town. But there were also moments where her green eyes came alive in the middle of a story, and she tossed her hair and smiled and gestured, and I felt more like a little kid listening to a treasured aunt than a lonely Valgardian listening to a great wolf. When dinner had started, she'd been quick to inform me that her senses were on high alert, keeping watch for any stray listeners so that we could talk freely as long as we were quiet. But after that brief moment of security advising, the ineffable May that ran Velvet had slowly relaxed, visibly settling into her chair with her glass of wine as she asked me about myself. We talked about my new life in Flair, about my friendships, about how I'd become more comfortable here, apart from BC and her threats to kill me. It wasn't like those were a secret. BC had told May about our encounter on the roof. May had wanted my perspective, and she'd listened. But when the story was told, May had assured me that BC's words, at least in this case, were empty threats, and she had promised my safety, and then she had got kind of a sad look as she gazed out at the lights of the festival. Eventually, she suggested we talk about more positive things, and I'd been happy to switch the topic. But a few probing questions about Valgardia really led us nowhere. I couldn't trick myself into remembering, I guess. So instead, the conversation turned to stories of May's youth, before she had become a watcher for the wild. May told me about the lands beyond the Western Expanse, where she had traveled when she'd been hot-headed and ready for whatever adventure the world had for her. That wasn't out of the ordinary for great wolves. While many of them remained within the Western Expanse and the connecting wilds, it was natural that any young wolf might wander afield to explore. In fact, it was universally understood that any wolf who might one day become the Erytheme needed to explore the wilds of the world. Without traveling near and far, there was no real way that any Erytheme could appreciate their duties to the Council of Stars and all of the many other Watchers of the Wild scattered around the world. Did you ever want to become an Erytheme? I remember asking. Could you have even done that?
Well, it was never in my mind, except in passing. Though, if you're asking whether female great wolves can become an Erytheme, then the answer is yes. When it comes to the strength of the wild and the wisdom to lead, the pack makes no distinction between mothers and fathers.
She'd gotten a smile then.
Though, you know who had been dead set on becoming the Erytheme since a young age? That rascal, your friend Tristan.
And that had sent us into the long story of their friendship and history. May and Tristan had known each other nearly since birth, and they had been friends, traveling partners, and lovers, though their romance had ended long ago. None of that particularly surprised me based on what I'd seen of their brief reunion, but what did surprise me was the way that May talked about those early years together. Her eyes gleamed when she talked about journeying across the great wastes, venturing up to the mountains of the sky until they had gone so high that their breath turned to ice and their vision danced. She told me stories about them, soaring with eyes wide open off of waterfalls so high they couldn't see the bottom, or exploring the depths of the Uveran heartland until they found the lands where the sky turned to fire. They had raced along the shores of great tidal flats and perilous shallows until they stood at the very edge of the end storm. But the story changed there.
There is a reason that every great wolf, well, every great beast at all, who seeks to join the Council of the Stars must walk the wilds. It changes you, and who you were before you first set foot beyond the familiar forests is never the same. There are some who were dead set on the role of Erethyme and instead fall deeply in love with the joy of exploration. Wanderers, for the wild we call them, and through their eyes and ears we trace the reaches of this world's most hostile places. On the other hand, there are some, like me, who had gnashed and longed to run for their entire lives and suddenly found their hearts called for the peace of home and the strength of firm roots.
Is that why you and Tristan didn't? Why you guys aren't as close anymore?
In part, though compared to human relationships, great wolf relationships are different. I still consider Tristan one of my dearest friends, and if the time came where our paths aligned, I'm sure it would only take a shake of the tail and a bad joke from him before we were rolling around in the leaves again like young, hot-blooded wolves.
She couldn't help that a cheeky grin was sliding onto her face.
We did actually try to start a family when we got back from our journey. Partially because we couldn't keep our paws off each other, and partially because of duty. Great wolves have a tremendously low fertility rate compared to humans, probably to offset the fact that we live so tremendously long. And when it came down to it, well, Tristan and I simply weren't a match to be blessed with that particular gift.
So, you became a watcher for the wild?
In time, yes. Tristan became a lieutenant to Midnight Greatjaw, who in the times was called Alfonso, and when Midnight Greatjaw became Erethyme of the Full Moon's Guard, Tristan's responsibilities grew. And I too realized I still had something else to give this world. One thing led to another, and a few decades ago, I took the reins of Velvet from my predecessor, and I have stayed here ever since.
Are any of the other owners watchers for the wild?
I would never know, and I would never ask. Just one among many secrets hidden in the pit.
Do you ever get tired of living here? Just all of the lies and secrets and everything else, it just seems exhausting.
There are times where this secret life grows challenging, where I long to run free and show my true self. But I also find that a part of myself, that true May, is in love with the beauty of this place, one of the few on Earth where so many different types of people gather. That is truly magical, and I am called here as well.
As she said that, a flare of streaking fire shot into the sky high above the rooftops, and it was joined by streaking pillars of twinkling ice. They peaked nearly at our eye level before they dissipated, and May sighed.
There are not many places in the world where such a display could happen without signaling the signs of war. I'm sad that circumstances won't allow you to visit the festival, Cyrus. It's an experience I think everyone deserves to have.
Beneath us, the flares and the shots of ice continued to flash among the lights of the waterfront. May reached out to her empty glass of wine.
Cyrus, could you refill us? And actually, I think we finished our meals. Could you take them away?
I was happy enough to help, and it was only when I stepped back inside and spotted my little carrying cart that I remembered I was technically on the clock for Flare. There were certainly worse jobs in the world. I took the dishes and stacked them up in a little bussing tub, covered them with a black cloth, and then reached into the cooler to open up another bottle of deep maroon wine, the same stuff we'd been drinking. I'd messed up on opening the first bottle, which I remembered Clay telling me would be met with swift punishment if it actually happened to someone in the dining industry. But May had given me a cool smile and helped me fix the situation. I'd get this one right. Undo the twine, slice the wrapping, unwind the wrapping. Now take the corkscrew, slide it into the cork, and start slowly working the cork out, which was hard because of how tightly jammed in there it was. These were old bottles, very fancy stuff that May was drinking. This time I was going to get it right. So I was careful, cautious, teasing and working the cork until it was just about ready to... I didn't realize I had let go of the bottle until it hit the floor and shattered, and even the glass peppering my shins and the cool splash of red wine as it began to pool by my feet felt very far away. Much further away than that scream. Oh my god, is she okay? Is she okay? Oh god, Mama Maven. Oh god, they're coming. Oh god, oh god, oh god. Run! We gotta run, we gotta run, we gotta run! Cyrus, what on earth is going on? May said, grabbing me by the shoulders and turning me to face her. I could see her glowing green eyes clearly. Behind her, the flashing lights continued sporadically. This is not... May, it's not a performance. I could see the glowing green in her eyes, but the longer I looked, the more I realized that there was another emerald light shining beyond it, somewhere out there, faintly glowing. I tried to walk towards the balcony, but I just bumped into May, who pushed me back and held me at arm's length. Cyrus, what are you talking about? What do you mean it's not a performance? What happened? I looked back at her and I started trying to put into words that I needed to make it under the wharf and protect Carmore if he would just stop being such a jackass, but then May's eyes went totally wide. Cyrus, your eyes are glowing. Stop that. I looked at her, but I couldn't stop. I had no idea. And besides, we had to keep going, no matter how scared we were. We had to get back up to the haven. May, I can't stop, I said, realizing the thoughts weren't mine. I need to help her. May looked at me, cursed to the moon, the stars, and the spirits of the wilds, and then turned around. Cyrus, you need to stop putting out your power right now. She went to the balcony and started to pull the door closed. I know you don't know how to control it yet, but you need to calm down or else fucking duck. A sudden burst of profanity shook me out of my haze for just long enough to see her hands flash green, eyes on the city below. May, what's going on? Edera, they are in the city. Want to know what happens next? Join us on Patreon to become a hero of Edera and get early access to episodes along with bonus features, director's commentary, and the full Tab to archive. You can also find other ways to support us at the links in the description, and we will see you next week.